Hello viewers, welcome to the video lecture series of Hand Embroiderer, Class 10th, Unit 3, Session 1. The topic for today is traditional embroidery of Gujarat and Rajasthan. In order to classify the embroideries of Gujarat, we have two things in common. We can actually talk about them from Saurashtra, which was the origin of Gujarat, and trace it to Kathiawari, that is one type of embroidery, which actually brings us to Kutch embroidery. Kutch embroidery, also referred to as Kachi embroidery, representing the community staying there. So let's understand Kathiawari in detail. Kathiawari is generally done by Kathis, that are the cattle breeders over there. And since the people laugh a lot, therefore that translates to Hasna in Hindi. Nothing but HAS coming to the acronym for the different types of Kathiawari embroidery that we possess. H would mean Heer Bharat, A would mean Abla Bharat, and S would be signifying Sindhi Tropa. The major stitches that are used in this would be chain, herringbone, buttonhole, and darning stitch. So the articles that we make out of them would include the attire, including ghagra choli, jackets, torans, but not to forget bags, wall panels, furnishings, and so on. Let's come on to Heer Bharat. Heer implies silk floss, and Bharat implies embroidery. So in particular, this is an embroidery which is carried out with the help of silk floss. It is basically done on a blue base fabric with silk floss in crimson, magenta, black, red, and white colors. The whole design is filled. The filling is done with either the buttonhole or long and short stitch. Let's understand the second and the most important, which is Abla Bharat. Abla means Shisha and Bharat means embroidery. Hence, it implies that there would be an extensive use of mirrors in the entire embroidered article. Either silk or cotton or a blend of two would be used for this. Herringbone stitch is the primary stitch that we use in it, in the bright colors of red, green, pink, blue, and orange. Let's come on to the most complicated one, that is Sindhi Tropa. It actually goes further and talks about geometric and floral motifs being interwoven on the top of the fabric, and it's a culmination of two stitches coming together. There is a normal base that is prepared with herringbone stitch, and on the top of that we have an interlacing. Central motif or a border motif are basically used so as to signify a Sindhi Tropa, and this is mainly done in the bed sheets with use of the silk floss or silk. This brings us to the end of Kathiawari. But not to forget the other part which talks about Kutch. K would mean Kambi, A would mean Ahir, R Rabri, and M being the Mochi. Let's discuss them in the order of significance. So Mochi are the most important part of the entire Kutch, and they are the shoemakers. The colors that they generally use are green, indigo, blue, yellow, ivory, and red. It's mainly done with silk or woolen thread on silk or cotton fabric. We just had an idea that Mochi was the most important community from Kutch. But what's the main job? They are the shoemakers. So everything that they do would relate to leather objects, usually created on shoes. Leather belts, bags, wallets would be the major items that they would actually work on. And what do they use while working? They would either use zari thread, silk floss, cotton thread, and they would work on leather, cotton, silk, or velvet. They use a very fine chain stitch and actually carve out patterns of leaves and flowers on the top of the leather or velvet fabric. So the major articles that came out were leather bags, belts, and footwear. So let's come to the second of it. That's Kanbi Bharat. Now Kanbi actually signifies the patent work of the Kanbi community. Kanbi are nothing but nomads who are there in Gujarat, and this is what they do with a lot of grace. The colors that they use are yellow, orange, green, white, and purple. They use a darning stitch for outlining and herringbone for filling. The specific motifs that they use over here are that of sunflower and kevra. The cactus flower, the beautiful articles are basically made by them, which are used to cover the domestic animals and furniture while it's the time of the festivals. So that was all about Kambi. Coming on to the Ahir, which is a major community that forms the base of Gujarat. The embroidery is basically for the gifts that they give away at the time of marriage. This embroidery actually goes a lot on the torans, the quilts and the cushions. They generally use sankli or chain stitch for outlining, vana or herringbone for filling, along with bakhia and dana for the purpose of filling and detailing the motifs of the design. The motifs are generally geometric and floral in nature. So that was all about Ahir. Coming on to Rabari, the not to be forgotten community of Gujarat. They have a culmination of lot of ideas from different places, as a result of which no definite design comes out. What appears is an applique work, which is nothing but a pictographic representation and is symbolic of the mythology. The rituals, the culture and the life of the Rabaris is actually portrayed on the top of the base that they have in front of them. And chain stitch, back stitch or herringbone stitch is what they use. They would actually put out their experience out there, either in the form of beautiful birds, flora, human figures or so on. This brings us to the end of Gujarat. So let's start our journey to Rajasthan. Rajasthan is symbolic of courage, valor, hospitality and princely charm. So the different types are as follows. First is a mochi, second is moti, third comes to heer and fourth is applique. While we are talking about the different types of Rajasthan embroidery, we will also draw a correlation to that of Gujarat. So let's start with mochi bharat. Mochi bharat is mainly done by Meghwal or Mochi community. What they use over here is chain stitch. What they do with that stitch is that they actually decorate the leather goods. Generally, they use a hand spin or a hand woven coarse khadar fabric or camel leather. What they carve out is geometric motifs of animals, human figures, birds and flowers. Rajasthani jutis, bags, purses, belts, ottomans, ghagras, odhnis and kachlis. The Rajasthani blouses, also angrakhas, are basically decorated with mochi bharat. This brings us to the second part, that is moti. Moti, as you simply know, is an acronym which we use for beads. So beads are generally used over here. Traditionally, stone or glass beads were used, but nowadays we use plastic beads. Vibrant hues of red, green, yellow, blue, orange and white are used in the beads. Mainly it is done in the Jalore district of Rajasthan. Nowadays we feel that cotton, velvet, satin and silk are becoming the base of the various decorations that take place in the Jalore district, as compared to the camel leather that was used earlier. Nowadays it is also used for making the coasters, keychains, jewelry, brushes and etc. Third is heer bharat. Heer, as we know, referred to mirror, and it was also present in Gujarat. In Gujarat is referred to as abla bharat. Heer bharat talks about the colourful mirror embroidery of Rajasthan. Abla bharat was the colourful mirror embroidery of Gujarat. Abla actually refers to as shisha, whereas heer refers to as silk floss. In Rajasthan, there is a tradition that they cannot call it abla bharat because abla bharat was already there in Gujarat. So they refer to as heer bharat. Why? Because they use silk floss in the use of this embroidery. Heer bharat is generally done with white, black, green, yellow, blue, pink and purple colors. Long and short buttonhole and herringbone stitches are together used for filling. Traditionally, we understood that coarse hand spun woolen or cotton fabric was used. But today, we see a variety of fabrics being used for the base. Untwisted silk yarn, thick cotton, woolen yarn are basically used for the filling stitches. The stark difference about this stitch from the others would be the impressions of the gods and the goddesses, the birds, peacock, parrot and animals like elephant and horses, along with trees and human figures being visible in this form of embroidery. We already had known that geometric motifs were common among all the Rajasthani embroideries, but this was a special one. Finally, we move on to applique. Applique is generally carried out in Jaipur, Udaipur and Barmer districts of Rajasthan. Marwari community is the one which has been spending years and years being engaged in the work. Chain, buttonhole, running stitch are the most common ones. And what comes out on the base of the fabric is flora and fauna, animals and birds in geometric style. That's all about applique work from Rajasthan. What we just observed was that Rabari work or Rabari bharat from Gujarat resembled appearance to the applique work from Rajasthan. Similarly, we understood abla bharat from Gujarat represented a similar kind of work apart from the motifs that were used in Rajasthan's Heer Bharth. A lot of correlations can be drawn when we talk about Gujarat and Rajasthan in particular. Why? Because not only are they neighboring states, but they have a cultural similarity. This brings me to the end of this video where we talked about all the traditional embroideries that encompass Rajasthan and Gujarat. I hope you had a fair idea about the traditional embroideries. Keep learning, keep watching. Thank you.